officially live. I like it.
I love waiting for it to load. So the anticipation. Okay, and we are live. Hi, I'm Jessica Nicole Dickerson. This is the Brown Girl Book Club, where we read women of color books from authors or protagonists. And yeah, you don't have to be a woman or identify as a woman to join in every month. And this month is Cinderella is Dead. And I have these lovely people with me. You guys want to introduce yourselves too? Whoever wants to go first.
I'm Kaylani. My channel is Kaylani Simply Me, and yeah, live in California, living my best life.
Yes.
Cool. Oh, I'm Cecilia from Cecilia Reads. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Erin from Booked and Busy. I'm a fantasy-ish booktuber. We'll go with that for today.
Yes. And I know if you guys wanted to mention, because I know you announced your readathon recently, and I know like Kaylani has a book club. If you guys wanted to mention those things too, go for it.
Sure. I have a readathon in September from the 13th to the 20th. It's the Royal Readathon. We're going to be reading books about or featuring royalty. And I also have an adult fantasy center book club. And this month we're reading The Rage of Dragons, and our live show is later on today. So if you have read it, feel free to jump in and, come on over to my channel and check it out if you're interested.
Yes, and then I have a book club as well. It's called Simply We Read, where we read YA and adult fantasy and little things here and there. We change it up quite a bit, but this month we read Scythe. My live show is also later on today at 2 if you want to join. And in September we are reading Mermaid Moon.
Awesome.
Cool.
I love it. I love it. So Cece, that we just convinced you that you need to do a book club or something.
We've already talked to do the manga.
Well, actually, I want to start a manga book club. That's in the works right now. But also, I love it. Yes, but the Phasing Gaze book club. Also, I'm a co-host for it. We read science fiction and fantasy gay books, And our pick for September is actually Cinderella is Dead. So you can always, if you want to hear more discussion.
If you're already ready, you're ahead of the game. Yay.
Exactly. There you go. And then you can join ours, and that'll be on my channel next month. So that'll be great.
Fabulous. I love it. So involved we are. Ooh. And then hi everyone. I know everyone's comments are starting to come in. Hello. Thank you for joining us. So as we said, we are read this month, the Cinderella is Dead. And let's start off with, what did we rate this book? I'm very interested to see how people liked it. So I'll go first. I gave it a 4-star. I don't know who wants to go next. Maybe Cece, what did you rate it?
I gave it a 10 out of 10 or a 5-star. So I do both. So yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Erin, what about you?
I gave it 2 stars.
Okay, I'm not the only one that didn't love it.
Okay.
I gave it a 3-star.
Okay. 3-star? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we have a whole range here. That's great. That's great.
You actually really
maybe. Okay, maybe let's explain why we gave it the rating we gave it without giving like spoilers or anything. We'll save spoilers to the end for people who maybe haven't finished or didn't read it yet. So how about we start with the lowest rating, 2-star? What compelled you to give it a 2-star?
It was a 2-star for me because I felt like the world building was almost non-existent. Sophia was a very annoying, very unlikable character. And I felt like she read a little too young to be 16 and a little bit too naive to be like in this dystopian like type utopia. And I feel like she was very rash, and like the Insta-love didn't really work for me. So those things kind of brought it down for me. And I thought that Manfred could have been taken to like such a high level. It was so much potential there. And I think the premise was really, really good, but it kind of dropped the ball in like the execution for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. I liked the characters, but I didn't feel like the story was well-rounded enough for me to be like, I love these characters. Like, I stand these characters. And again, I totally agree with Erin. The Insta-love for me was just like kind of like over the top, especially when you start off the book with this quote-unquote relationship. And I'm just like, where did this I didn't feel like there was a connection And then without saying spoilers, I felt like the twist for me was very predictable, as well as you have this book that's challenging the idea of a fairy tale, and I felt like it wrapped up a little bit too nicely for me to like feel like it came to full close, you know?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And then the reason I gave it a 4-star was that I did really enjoy, like, especially like the first half. I just thought it was really fun. Retelling. I really love retellings in general, especially with such a classic Cinderella tale to take it into a new kind of world. So like a quick synopsis, just so people know in case you haven't read it and you're watching. Cinderella's Dead is basically the story after Cinderella. Like 200 years later, we're picking up in a new world in a society where basically women have to follow these laws. They can't go anywhere by themselves. When they're 16, they have to be chosen by a man. And if they're not, they're forfeit. And forfeit's basically like dying. So it's a very stressful time. So I thought the interesting, at the beginning was very interesting, but the Insta-love is what hit it for me, where I'm like, okay, I'm docking it 1 star because I didn't believe their relationship. It just progressed way too quickly. And like Kaylani said, there's that already other established relationship in the beginning. So I just feel like some of the characters weren't believable in their shifts. But otherwise, I did enjoy myself. I stayed up very late every night trying to finish it. I was like, look at this. And I haven't done that in so long. So I was very gripped.
Oh, yeah. For me, the main character Sophie, whatever, is literally me. That was me when I was a teenager. I was literally exactly her. So I was like, yes, like this is me as a person. I felt like the Insta-love was believable simply because I've been in those situations before where I'll be like in love with someone. I'm like, wait a minute. So I felt like I've been through that situation before that she's been through. So I was like, this makes sense to me, even though like as an adult, it wouldn't make sense. But like as a teenager, I was like, yeah, totally. Like this is something that I totally have done like in the summer or something like that. I felt like this was more of a character-based fantasy. So I didn't really look at the world building or the way that the world was set up, because I was like, YA fantasy worlds really aren't that set up most of the time anyways. So I kind of went into that like, this is character driven. I'm just not gonna look at the world. And I just had it was just a good fun time, you know?
Mm-hmm. I have to agree. In the beginning, especially when I was first reading this, I saw a lot of myself in Sophia. I was like, I love protagonists that aren't that likable, if that makes sense, where they're still growing. They're still like a human and they make a lot of flaws. And she's kind of like, not pretentious, but she's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to survive. And like, I'm really selfish and I just care about my romances. But yeah, maybe we can talk about the Insta-love. I know other people have felt the same way about the Insta-love, how it's like, it felt a little rushed. And I know, Cece, you felt like it was natural. And I actually see your point now that I'm thinking about it. Like 16, I totally liked so many people at the same time, like rotating through, like I'm in love and feeling it. So for me, I didn't find it believable just because of, I don't know how to explain it, but basically I just felt that the connection between the two, like it was just immediate. Like, I love the way you look. And then they loved each other. That's how I felt. It kind of felt. And I'm, as someone who doesn't care for appearance, I'm like, I get that she's a redhead and she's gorgeous, but so that's how I'm kind of feeling about the Insta-love. If anyone has any specifics on like why they didn't feel like the Insta-love was like, or what you wanted from it instead.
For me, the Insta-love was unbelievable because if you look at the timeline, when she first met her was the same night she was literally trying to beg Aaron to leave with her. And I felt she was a little bit overly aggressive with Aaron. That's something I thought that continued throughout the story. I was like, she was a lot more forceful than I would have liked, and I wouldn't have been receptive to that either. But she was so in love with this girl. I mean, so in love. Who also, Aaron didn't seem to reciprocate all the feelings she had, but that's like another discussion. But she was willing to face the world, face the music to be in this love. And on the same day that you're willing to risk it all, you meet someone. I saw a review that said it's basically Cinderella and Marita kind of get together from Brave. Until you meet this girl in the tomb who you don't know. It's a scary situation. And you're just like, wow, she is so fine. That well, I'm just like, and then while they're still in love, she goes to see her and she's like begging Aaron again. And then she comes back and like, oh, I already chose you before I left. And I was like, did you? I didn't read that you had already chose her. That was like a totally different situation for me. So
literally, those are my exact thoughts reading the book. Like, you were like personifying my feelings. I'm sitting there like, you did? When you left, I thought you would. I didn't feel that. Mm-hmm. So I think that Erin was an interesting character because I think that she was like the exact personification of what the world had turned people into. Like, she was it. But at the same time, like, I understand what you're saying. Like, Erin, if I was Erin's position, I wouldn't have been receptive to the way that Sophia was treating her. Mm-hmm. It's like she was expecting so much more than what the person in the relationship is willing to give. And it just didn't feel like it was an authentic relationship to begin with. But same thing, it's like, why would you go into, especially, I mean, 16 wasn't that long ago for me at least. But like, to go from, I absolutely adore you, you're the person that I'm like gonna run away with and spend the rest of my life with, to, nah, I can leave you to the side for this other chick, she's hot. Like, it just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel right. I did like what their relationship represents as a whole, but I just didn't care for the relationship as it was.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I will say, I loved how it was gay from the first page. Yes. I really appreciated that. The sappicness was not like underlying plot or real subtle. It was page 1, she is so hot. And no other, it wasn't a male love interest like to tempt her. Even the love interest was like, actually, I like boys, like we just can be beards together. That was like the thing that kind of gave it that sweet spot for me. I really appreciated how forward it was with a brown girl being in love with women, you know, or being interested. I really liked that.
Yeah. And I think that's why I also enjoyed that love, like, because I can understand that maybe in the circumstances she was in this world where you were told that you need to be chosen by a man, like your love doesn't even count. Like, someone's gonna pick you and you're gonna marry them and you're just hope to not get beaten at home. That's the world they live in. So when I saw that and realized that, for me, her being so desperate kind of made sense to me. I'm like, I understand her begging and stuff, because like I was asking people like, I want to still date you in high school, and I was like not having any crazy circumstances with any fantasy world. I was just like, can we just date, please? Like, why not? I don't know if that's just me being real open and honest about that, but it's definitely like, I definitely understand why there was that much tension. The flip is what got me. I was like, oh, and I think the author did try to like kind of put in, oh, I'm thinking about her all the time and I still care for Erin. And I also kind of liked that not towards the end, and it's not too much of a spoiler, but Erin hasn't changed at all when she comes back, and it makes her realize like, oh, you're not fighting for this, I need to give up. I think that's a great message for teens, especially, that if you like someone and you're trying to fight for them, it's like, no, you should let it go. Let's have a healthy relationship. Let's find someone that likes you back. So I liked what that meant for like a younger reader too. I don't know. I feel like I would love to read that when I was 16.
Yeah, the reason why I really like the flip, how it seems so like, I just guess, sudden, is that to me, Sophie read like so much that she was so desperate for love that she was willing to take kind of anything, and she felt love through Constance, but no love through Erin. So she was like, well, I might as well be with someone who actually cares about me, wants to be with me, than someone who doesn't. So to me, I was like, of course, in this world, how she's thinking is that like, if I tell anybody that I like girls, I'm gonna be killed or anything like this. So she's so desperate that anybody who likes me, I'm gonna want to be with them. Like, that's just how it is, because I don't have any other options.
I think I would have liked it more if Erin did not exist, or if Erin was just her friend who also liked girls, but they didn't like each other, because Constance was better suited to her. They were of a similar mind, or equally yoked, as one might say. And outside of this, their relationship made more sense. They had similar goals. They were both passionate about justice, and they were both willing to do what needed to be done and go the extra mile to be together, or whatever. Even Constance was willing to like let her go if she wanted Erin. And I think that relationship kind of would have meant more, even if it had been instant love and like they just met. It's the instant love and you were already in love that kind of was the disconnect for me. And I like that Erin didn't go back. Erin was like, even though things are changing, I still don't want you that way.
Yeah,
Yeah, I definitely think in the beginning it wasn't love. I think it was definitely just a lust because they both happened to like girls, and being stuck in this circumstance, they were like really drawn to each other, even though Aaron was drawn in a different way. But so I kind of get that in the beginning that really wasn't love. That was just like a really complex like survival stance. Like I think she was kind of using Aaron a little bit as a scapegoat. Like we can live together and be happy, and Aaron's like, I don't want to die. That's like the priority. So I definitely agree with that. And so let's see. Anyone else have any comments about Insta-love or anything? Okay, maybe let's talk about the retelling aspect, because I think personally that's the coolest part. And I also like that there was some embedding that there might be even another story retelling. I don't know if you guys caught that. Did you guys see that at all?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm very excited. There was at one point mentioned the storybook that had other stories in it, so that there was that there are other witches in the forest who do evil things. So it's just, I don't know, that was cool to me. I really love retellings, especially this one, because it took everything on its head so much. Because you know, Prince Charming's like such a hero, and we think of him fondly. And I love the fact that they mentioned like Charming is his first name. Like, what is that? Like, that's not even real. Like, I just personally, I really liked how it was retold and how it relates to our world so much, how people are kind of sheeps and they'll follow along even if it's like dangerous and not worth anything. I was wondering how you guys kind of felt, because I know Erin, you said you didn't like the world building as much, but I don't know, was there any parts you liked, or you like definitive?
Amina. I would read a whole book on Amina. That was like, that's what I wanted from the book. Like how interesting that was, like double cross. How you really didn't know what to expect from her character. Like that's a complete 180 on the fairy godmother. Like she's actually like a witch. It's like, oh, that's what you call me? No, that's not it. And the relationship that she had with another character, because we haven't gotten there yet. That twist I really enjoyed that. The part about Manfred was predictable, but I actually did not predict the other thing. And the way that even when they went into the reflection pool, the like foreshadowing, and she's like, oh, that's how it's going to happen. And then when it came back to it, she's like, oh, this is what it was. And I really, really liked Amina. I would read a whole book about her and her story. That was 10 out of 10.
Amina was great.
Mm-hmm. She was a great character, but I'm the opposite. I did see it coming. But I liked that. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil, but I like that even though Amina knew what the outcome was, she still went through with everything, which I thought was really interesting. But for me, the aspect of the fairy tale was really interesting because I don't think I've ever seen a fairy tale retelling turn it on its head so much. Like I've seen fairy tale retellings do it different and change some aspects of it, but the entire thing was just a total 180. And seeing how much the book is a metaphor for the lives that we live on an everyday basis, and the amount of cultural acceptance that we allow was very interesting. It was a very interesting aspect to the book, and something that I would definitely love to see more of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I was reading reviews and someone said that this is more of like a remix instead of a retelling. And I feel like that word like perfectly encapsulates the story. Is that because it's not retelling like the events that's happening. It's more like those events already happened, but like what you thought about them was completely different. So it's like, I really like that aspect of it because I've read a lot of retellings, watched a lot of retelling kind of things. And I haven't seen anyone, I have never really enjoyed Cinderella retellings, but this is the rare one where I was like, hits that sweet spot because it's just so different from the original. Because I don't like Cinderella as a character. Like originally in her story, I don't like the story, but this one, oof, it was good.
Yeah, definitely. And I was thinking that I like how you explain it as like a remix. That's a really good way to phrase it. I also really like the fact that it kind of parallels how history is told, how history is told by the winners. And I know that's a phrase that you hear a lot in the US, is that history is told by the winners. And I just thought that parallel was really cool because it's like, you should really start questioning what you're told. And I think that's a really good thing to be telling a younger audience, especially during this time, that, hey, you should not believe everything everyone says, especially if they're harming you. Like if your ruler or leader is out taking action to put you in harm's way. It's like, maybe I should question this. So I really liked that aspect of like questioning your leaders, questioning your history, seeking facts. Like I thought that was a really interesting turn, especially for YA, because YA tends to be, you know, just like you have to go on an adventure and you are the chosen one for no particular reason. And this one, she was like, yeah, I'm not special and I'm kind of somewhat unlikable, but I'm going to still try because this is what's right. So I really appreciated that.
Speaking to that, I really like the scene where Constance and Amina are comparing the books, and it shows you like the very subtle changes that historians and the conquerors and whoever's telling the story make. And it's like, in essence, it's not a lie. And this is how they get you. It's not a lie. It's just a slight reimagining. And that's something that we're talking about in my book club, is like a slight reimagining of what happens that like completely shifts the entire narrative. And it was so subtle. It was like so many little things, and because like we were like, oh, what's different about your story? And they were comparing the palace approved text, which everyone had to have, everyone had to read so they could internalize it, and then what really happened, which is so subtle, but it's like their whole society is built on these lies, but these lies have so much truth in them that, okay, I like it. I like this.
True.
Very true.
Exactly.
Okay. And then I wanted to ask, and by the way, if you have any like questions, leave any questions in the comments down below. Right now, I'm just kind of spitballing questions. My question was, because I know you guys kind of mentioned some of your favorite characters. Who was your favorite character? And I'm going to go last because I'm indecisive. But I was wondering if you guys have a favorite character. Yours is Amina, right?
I feel like Amina was the most complex character. She was the most round character, the least predictable, and she was unlikable, but in a way that was likable, if that makes sense. Her character arc, her storyline, I was very intrigued by and how little we got of her. So yeah, she was definitely my fave.
I agree. She was also my favorite character.
You agree?
Yeah, she just not only how well-rounded she was, but just like her personality. Like she was just snarky as hell, and I loved it. And she didn't take any crap, and I loved that. But you also saw like in the small glimpses that the author gives you of the fear that's behind the reason why she did things, you can also see that intertwined in there as well. And I don't think that was like a manipulative ploy. Like she was just real. And I really enjoyed it. I thought she was a very well-rounded character.
Yeah. I really liked everybody. Of course, Amina, Constance, Sophie. I liked everybody. I don't have a specific person, but I just enjoy everybody. Like I would read separate books based off like everybody's past. Like I would read one about Amina's past. I'd read one about Constance's past, because I think that's interesting, of her and her family, like living off on the edge, like being hunted. I think that's very interesting, and I would curious to see all of that. But yeah, I like them all.
This is a really.
I'm having trouble. Oh yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead. I'll ask in a second.
No, you. Okay. Well, I was actually going to say that for some reason, this is like a first book in a while where I've enjoyed it, but I actually don't have a favorite character, like standout character. I thought Amina was cool, but in the end, when I kind of like all the things unraveled and stuff, and I was just like, oh, you did all that for that? And then her banter with Constance, I don't know. I thought Amina was like, I liked you at first, but now I know you're like being shady. And I'm just, And then Sophia, I think she was kind of supposed to be unlikable. So I didn't really enjoy like her thought process on things, but I did appreciate that even though she was scared and stuff, she still tried to do what was right. So I feel like I appreciate the deep metaphor of the story, but I couldn't find a character that I like loved. It was very odd. And I think that's also why I didn't really give it a 5-star. So that's why I was wondering if you guys had favorite characters. I'm like, who am I supposed to like in this book? I'm kind of like kidding.
I think the story would have benefited from being multi-POV. It would have gained a lot.
I think it was.
Whether it was Manfred, that would have been a good one. Manfred,
that'd be a great POV to add.
More of the world without Sophia's eyes, or Sophie, because I feel like she's very biased. But it's also so many things she does not know, so many places she has not gone, and I think we would have gotten more from the story had it not have been like, oh, this is bad, 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 hate it, hate it, hate it, versus someone who, or maybe it's another girl who had to go and who didn't feel so strongly about it, or who was excited to go, because then we would have had a little bit more comparison. It would have been a little bit of a bigger thing, because it's like, not some people, and this is true in like all throughout history and all throughout like this, there are people who are perfectly okay with status quo. And I think the contrast, it would have enriched the story for me.
Oh, and then what was your question, Kaylani?
I was curious on what you guys thought of the role that Cinderella played in the story, like her character, not like the Cinderella story, but her character as a whole.
They could have left her in the ground. She was not very helpful.
She didn't do nothing. They put her up for 5 minutes, and they were like, "Oh, I'm dead again." And I was like, "What was the point?" That scene did annoy me.
You don't give no hints, nothing. Okay,
yeah, that scene did annoy me. I felt like it was like, "What was this? What for? What? Why are you here?" Like, I didn't need you to come back to life for 3 seconds and then die again. Like,
yeah, I also thought it was very dramatic. I was like, that was just like, that was something to like try and wake up the people in the back row who maybe fell asleep during reading. Like, oh, guys, look, someone's alive. And I did like that at least we got the journal out of it. And I don't know, when I was reading this, I was like, this lady must be playing us. Like, Amina, I was like, something was weird, because she also like cut the tie really fast. She's like, I'm not keeping her alive. And like, I felt like there was a little like foreshadowing there. I was like, something's up here. And also the fact that she hadn't been completely like, what's it called when you die and when your body
desiccated.
Oh yeah,
decomposed. Like, I was like, how are these people not looking at this and not going like, this is a major, like, how if he killed her, why is she still like this? And I feel like there was that classic YA, oh, that's interesting, and walks away, you know? So I thought that was kind of interesting. I kind of wish she was alive longer. I thought they were going to bring her to the palace or something. I didn't know it was going to be that fast.
Yeah, that scene felt very, I guess, YA to me, like very just like oh yeah, it happened. All right, let's move on. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. That scene did annoy me though.
I think it would have been better had like she not been able to revive her, because later on when we found out about the other tie she had, it could have been like, you could only do one of these things and maintain them at the same time. That would have worked for me.
Yeah.
But Cinderella regained nothing.
That was the best reaction I needed from that. Like, I left her in the ground. I feel like it was the most uneventful part of the story, and like with it being a Cinderella story, knowing that she was in the tomb the entire time, I was expecting so much more from what that could have gave us. And I left that chapter like so unsatisfied. I was like, well, that's it? That's all we get? Yeah. And I honestly, to me, I don't feel like the journal was a necessary means to get the information that she needed. So that whole thing just didn't need to happen. I don't understand it.
A lot of stuff was convenient. Like, how is it that you escape and you just so happen to go up the one stairwell that leads to Cinderella, no one's been in 200 years, and in 200 years, Manfred or whoever has not found this journal that was not so, real deep in the ground somewhere you couldn't find, magicked up. It was behind the dresser. How in 200 years had no one found this? And how
that nobody cleaned this room? That there was nobody moved some furniture around? Maybe there was no spider that moved stuff around? No, I
was like,
it was convenient. It was convenient.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if they wanted necromancy in it just to show off the witchiness of it. That's what I was thinking of. And I was like, oh, she's showing off her powers. She's like, oh, I can kind of see the future and bring people back from the dead. Just fear me kind of scene.
That was enough of the witchiness for me. I was like, okay.
True. Cinderella is dead and she stays dead.
She really could have stayed dead.
She should have stayed dead.
I don't understand how the shoes were still sparking 200 years later either. Okay. Come on now. They the whole room?
True.
Magic. You have to have faith in the magic. Your face is just
nah.
And I'm like, I don't know how no one caught this in editing and writing anything. I'm like, this is like a ginormous plot hole. So when they're talking about the 4 kings that have ruled over whatever the name of this place is, they're like, each one has lived for 100 years. And I was like,
But if there's 4 kings and the last one is the 4th, then that makes 3, right? Because he just started.
They got 100-year gap to be explained.
That is
100-year gap.
Because I'm like, if Charming was the first, and he was married to Cinderella, and she died 200 years ago, how have the 4 kings or the first 3 kings lived for 100 years, and then Manfred is however long? I'm like, how is it that y'all thought the king coming from somewhere y'all never known, not a line of succession? How is that flying?
Wait, I'm trying to do math now. Maybe if Manfred took Cinderella as a wife when he was like at the end of his life, I don't remember specifically the timeline, then it could possibly work if him now is the new king.
That kind of subscribes to the nasty behavior of men.
I would have to reread that part to actually remember.
Because you're like, King Eustace, Charming lived for 100 years. Eustace lived for 100 years. The other dude, and that's like, okay, now we at Manfred. I was like,
I love the fact that I didn't even notice that at all. That I just skipped over that. 200 years, cool.
Cool, I got you. Yeah.
I actually, the thing I thought was gonna happen was that Manfred was gonna marry Sophia, make her be him, and like, I'm gonna punish you this way. I was like, that would have been. That's what I was looking for, but then that didn't happen. I was like, that would have been cool.
I was expecting that the whole time, that he was at some point going to be like infatuated with her because she was so rebellious, like Cinderella, that he would like try and kidnap her or something. I was waiting for that moment. And I feel like that's towards the end. I think that was like the build that I was expecting. That I was like, okay, he's gonna like do something super evil, and it wasn't so. Aaron's camera. You still there, Aaron?
Yes, 1 second. Sorry.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. But yeah, that's so funny actually that she points that out, because I'm one of those readers that you tell me something and I will believe you for the most part, unless it's a character like outwardly being shady and you're telling me to trust them. That's the only time I'm like, stop.
Oh, see, I was having this conversation with one of my other friends, and it's like, for me going into a book, I trust nobody, like not one single person, because I feel like so many books have like hurt me. I have like PTSD, you know. So going in, I didn't trust Constance. I didn't trust Amina. I didn't trust anybody, because it's like I feel like the books are set up for that. You're meant to love them, you're meant to trust them, and they just switch everything on its head. So going in with that mindset, like, I think that's why I was so open to the aspect of the twist, because I didn't trust anybody.
That's smart. I definitely don't do that.
I wanted Sophia to get hurt. I feel like everything was so easy. Like, I want her to break her arm, break her legs.
They didn't even have like a fight. There was no fight at the end. Like, I wanted something more.
She ran straight to the woods, and then she got to the mystical tomb. Now, how did you get to the tomb so easy? And nobody had been there in however many years. Then you go in there, and your savior is just right there. And he just so happened to have a spare set of clothes in the tomb.
Several pairs of clothes and garments and stuff. I like this sack that has been mentioned several times in the book, that she just has trousers and like tons of trousers. I'm just like, that's funny.
From everybody, everyone just going pantsless.
Neither of y'all are as worried about each other, or, you know, killing you as you might should be. And you're like, wow, she looks good.
Maybe she got low standards.
And then totally.
He was like, she is a woman. I see
not a son.
Yes.
That's the minimum, you know. Ooh,
that was the minimum.
You look great.
And Sophia kept going home. I'm like, do you want to die? Like, you actually want to die? Why did you keep going home?
She really wanted to die.
Yeah.
She really wanted to die. She was
on her side for some reason.
But even in those aspects, for both times she goes home, she has zero consequences.
That's true.
Like, she goes into this village where everybody is searching for her, and nothing, no consequences, zero.
How does seamstress get her neck chopped off, but the mama and daddy still alive?
True.
I don't understand. If he's so ruthless and so cruel, I'm like, killing the parents will be first on my to-do list. Hanging them up outside.
Yeah, I definitely expected that.
Whenever you come through, you see them. And it was like, she did it twice. And then she went to her friend's house to see her. And all these people kept catching her. And I'm like, how is it nothing happened, not a smack, just like nothing. Like, this is too easy.
Yeah. Oh, and then I wanted to talk about how feminist this book is, which was very interesting because I feel like books either kind of hit or miss this, because Sophia is kind of one of those girls who isn't like other girls because she's super gorgeous, but then I kind of like that she was unlikable in a sense that she didn't really want to do this, but she wanted her freedom and she was kind of selfish in that fact. And then she's like, okay, I'm going to turn a new leaf and help everyone. So I was just wondering, like, in this story, there was a lot of embedded like parallels to our time about kind of the feminist attitude. So I was wondering if you guys like that aspect, if you had like a favorite part, or if you were like, nah, this ain't feminist, or because I know y'all maybe have mixed opinions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I personally enjoyed it. Go ahead, Cece.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I thought it was enjoyable. I wasn't looking that hard into it. I was just like, this is fun, you know. I didn't go too much into metaphors until I thought about it afterwards. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I like how when in the book they didn't do too much. A lot of, I guess, descriptions on her appearance. So they did some descriptions, but they didn't go like, oh my gosh, she's the most beautiful person in the land. You know, they didn't do any of that kind of stuff, which I really appreciate because a lot of YA fantasy does that. And there was even parts where she was like ridiculed at some points for what she looked. She was like, you wore that dress to this party? Trash. And you know, and I actually like enjoyed that aspect, you know what I mean? She you knew that she was pretty, but it was not like she was the most gorgeous person in town kind of thing. So I enjoyed that.
One thing I liked was there was no chocolate coffee skin.
Oh, yeah, chocolate.
I love that.
Brown skin. Her brown skin.
Brown skin.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that was good. I think that the little hints of feminism that you see throughout the book, all the way until you get up to the end, and you know that is full on girl power at the very end. But one of my favorite quotes from the book was, I am just as I am, and after all this time, I know it's enough. Like, when you see those little things sprinkled throughout a book, especially for a YA book for young girls reading this, that's a wonderful thing to read about. Issues with the character aside and her ignorance and how like easily things came for her, when you're reading quotes like that at a young age, when you need to know that no matter what happens, no matter what a man tells you or how you choose to live your life, you're enough just as you are. Those are the little things in books that I'm like, yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I have so many highlighted quotes of like just moments, and I realized afterwards I was looking through them and they were all like very feminist ideas about like how we live at the whims of men's, or like that we live for the whims of men or something like that. Like the quotes were all about how in the beginning, and especially in the beginning, I feel like there was a lot of layered in feminist talk to kind of show like the consequences of the world, that in the world they live in. I don't know. I agree. Yeah. For a young audience, this is such a great book to pick up and be like kind of validated that, oh yeah, this is how I feel in my world, that like people don't listen or respect me. And the amount of times that she's called girl and like how it's impossible and she needs to sit down. I almost think the beginning is my favorite part, when she's stuck in the world with her parents and with people looking at her and talking at her like that. I kind of like that because I felt the consequences were at their peak there, which is interesting because you would think going out into the wild forest would be like more scary, but it kind of wasn't. For me, like it was when her dad was like, you need to like get it together or like forfeit. And I was just like stressed. So I really like that build in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I did like the conversation she had with her dad, and she was like, you would really rather me sacrifice and like suppress who I am and go along with the status quo. And he was like, yes, because I want you to be alive. Like, and I'm like, I think that's also, I'm not a parent obviously, but I think that's like the difference coming from like a parent's perspective. Like, I want you to be alive. I want you to be safe. That might not be the best thing, or like I might not want the same things as you, but I love you and I want you to be okay. And in the world that we live in, obviously I can't know that you're going to be the one, but as far as things go in this world, what you want is going to lead to you dying. And I want to prevent that as much as possible. So I would rather you be unhappy and alive than dead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I also like that really parallels to how queer people are treated in general. Like a lot of parents grow up, or I assume through everything that I've digested and been reading that it's very much the same in real life, where it's like, please just stay like quiet and don't show off, and that's what you're told to be safe. Or if you show off, then you kind of deserve the death or the consequences that you get. So I kind of like that parallel to real life. That was really grounding. I was like, ow, that hurts that's still a thing.
Oh, this is a good comment from Birdie.
I was just reading that.
But I think that shows you maybe everyone isn't a feminist.
True. I think it was a good duality of it, especially when it goes into the end. I was going to talk about that part, but it's kind of spoilers.
we can go into spoilers if you want. Just letting everyone know that we're going to talk spoilers.
But what I enjoyed also at the end is that the ending wasn't a happy ending. It specifically says that not everybody wanted to go with the regime they wanted. A lot of people fought back. They had a battle in the epilogue, and that like it was that they noted that it was going to take some time for people to get out of like the Cinderella story and to kind of like guess it'd be unindoctrinated. That's not a word, but you get what I mean. Yeah, but to get out of that mindset, and I think that what you're talking about, Birdie, is kind of that point, is that Erin is still in that mindset. And of course, it's going to take time, and if we didn't get to explore that in this book, I don't know if we'll ever get to explore that aspect of it. I think it would be a really interesting sequel to like see what happened afterwards, like past the epilogue. But yeah, I think it's just like, I think it just shows that like some people like in the society aren't ready for change, and they're just not ready for that part yet.
But it's more realistic. I also come around.
Yeah,
I feel like Erin was that typical. I like hands. I feel like Erin was that typical person who like wants structure in her life and wants to believe in the good. And then at the end, it kind of showed that though she was being treated poorly, she's like, I'm still subscribing to this idea. So I understand not liking that, but I kind of like it in the sense that in the end, there was this guy that randomly came out and he's like, why are we going to trust this girl to lead anything? I want to lead. And it's like, hey, you've been like literally doing domestic violence like this whole book. You don't deserve it. So I kind of feel like Erin shows that typical, like, or not typical, but like the victim of it, the person who has like kind of Stockholm syndrome of, I've grown up in this, I don't know what to expect when I leave. And I feel like that is actually a really realistic way to handle your kind of, you're living day to day in this house where like, you're just not appreciated. And I know maybe her home life before wasn't as traumatizing, but it just, I feel like it like you could kind of, I felt it when I read that last scene between the two of them, Erin and Sophia, as like, wow, like Erin's like, she's been traumatized by this experience and she's just trying to pretend that it's normal and she doesn't believe in anything. Because if you have faith that things are going to change and it doesn't, that hurts more. I don't know. I just thought that was very touching and very like kind of realistic to how victims might think of themselves in those circumstances. That's how I thought about it.
I was surprised by Constance being queen. Like I really thought they were going to do away with the whole queendom thing. I was like, what? Even when she they had the council, and I was like, huh? I was like, really? Like y'all, I would imagine that after overthrowing a ruler like that had ruled for 200-400 years and was so evil and so cruel, whatever, as a collective, they would be like, we're not gonna do that anymore. We're gonna like lead ourselves versus like, oh, she's the only one with a royal tie to the thing. I'm like, actually, no, she isn't, because she's the stepdaughter. I thought. So Cinderella's dad was the one that was going to be, this is how the world been. I was like, okay, this don't make sense. Cinderella's dad was the one that was going to be the king. And she's Cinderella's stepsister. So there is no blood relation. So I'm like, that don't make sense either.
Yeah.
To me, how I read it is that I feel like they set it up more as a constitutional monarchy, where it's kind of like, of course, they have like Constance as the queen, but they also have the council to like check and to have that kind of power. You know how England was in like the 1800s. I don't know. I don't know the politics in England, but constitutional monarchy. And I feel like if Constance was the queen, I don't know who else they would make the leader. You know what I mean? Like Sophia would not be a good leader. We all know this. And I don't think can't think of anybody else, at least that we know of in the story, who would. be a better leader
I
than
didn't think they would have
Constance.
one. Like I thought that it would just be like the council or something like that in that one. Because Constance didn't seem real leadery to me either.
Yeah, I feel like more leadery than the rest.
But she also had that same like bias that Sophia had that makes me feel like she wouldn't be a good leader. Just the same way as Sophia wouldn't have been a good leader because she doesn't have the outside ability to look outside of her own sphere of influence. You know, so I don't feel like, but that, I mean, that's interesting that Cece, you said that you thought that it didn't wrap up as a happy ending, where the way that I read it, I felt like it wrapped up too neatly. Like they just took this whole Cinderella story, blew it apart, plucked it piece by piece and like turned it on its head and then put it back together, tied it up in a neat bow and says, here you go. That's how I felt the ending was for me, because it was just like, after all this time of really like talking about romanticizing a fairy tale, just to go and make it happily ever after fairy tale, like just didn't seem right for me.
Yeah. I felt like it was interesting as well, like the way that, like how you say they like kind of put it back together a way. How I read it as like not being a happy ending is because that's when you see a lot of revolutions, that tends to happen a lot. It's like, well, there's a revolution and then we put another person back on power, and sometimes it's the same cycle of BS, you know? So that's how I read it, as in like, oh, this could happen again because it wasn't set up properly. But you know what I mean? That's just the vibe I got, that it wasn't set up properly, but it's kind of like we did the best that we could at the moment.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. That's funny because that means you weren't expecting the best from Constance. You're like, ooh, this is gonna be messy.
Exactly. I was like, I love you, girl, but you're not a leader material.
I was surprised that the land didn't change, because we know that Amina like made the land barren for Manfred to come into power, and then she made it lush, and his control over the land, like all that even like, remember when we was at Cinderella's old house in the tree? I'm like, so even years later, the results of this magic is still affecting things. So how is it that when these two big magical forces like at the same time like disappear from this world, how does nothing about the world change? I would have preferred if the ending, like right after like the fire thing and they were on the lawn, and like that had been the end right there. Because I'm like, that's more realistic as to like, okay, we accomplished the goal, but like we don't know what happens next, and so it's just like, you know.
I feel like a lot of YA books do that. They add this epilogue that just kind of ruins the ending. It's like almost like too much. Like you didn't really need to add all that information in there to make it feel like it wrapped up. I agree with you, Erin. They should have just like cut it and leave everything else up to your imagination.
And that would have left a lot of more. I don't know if it's going to be a sequel, but I feel like cutting it off right there would have left a lot more room for a sequel. Because it's like, what happens when the fairy tale doesn't have a happy ending? Like, I mean, as a continuation, as to, you know, when you overthrow the people and it's still not happily ever after. Like, there's a lot of room to like expand, especially since we don't know what's beyond the walls. We don't know anything about the other people beyond them. We don't know how they've been impacted, how they view the people like on the inside. Something, it was a lot of room to, you know, explore the story more, but it was like tied up very neatly.
Yeah, I feel like
I agree.
Yeah. From when I looked up, it's going to be a standalone. There's not going to be a series or anything like that. So I understand why there's an epilogue for that reason. If it was going to be another book, I'd be like, why the epilogue? but I understand putting the epilogue because it's a standalone and people, you know, be like, you know, they want answers. So I get it. But yeah.
I kind of like that they gave answers too, seeing that it's a standalone, because I personally hate the ... that's just me personally. I like it when there's definitive, kind of like some answers. Obviously, I don't think the answers have to be happy. I'm totally okay with the character dying at the end and that's how the story wraps up, or it doesn't have to be happy or whatever. It just, I feel like it definitely needs like a cap if you're not going to continue. But I don't know, when I read this, I thought there was going to be a continuation, because how the other forbidden lands are mentioned and the other stories are mentioned, I'm like, oh my God, are we lining up for a more series? So that's why when I saw the wrap up and the happy ending and the conclusion, I was like, oh. So I was a little underwhelmed by that, especially Constance being queen. I was just like, that's a random pick, but okay. But I did kind of like the fact that they did conclude it, because that made me feel like, okay, this is a standalone, and that makes sense to me now that you say that. Like, there might not be more series, even though I really hope there are, because I do like how she's written this retelling so far. Like, I could only imagine how Snow White would be, because I know Snow White was mentioned in the story. That would be the craziest reimagining. So I feel like that's my favorite, like fantasy story. Like I'm like, ooh, that'd be really neat.
Yeah, hopefully that retelling would like address the whole consent thing. I feel like this would be a great time to rewrite a Snow White retelling.
Oh yeah,
that's actually kind of gross.
Yeah,
what happens?
True. I think it would be really cool for them to do more of like different fairy tales. But I feel like the marketing would be like for fans of the Lunar Chronicles, or be compared to Lunar Chronicles so heavily to the point where it might be a detriment to the story.
Because I feel like Naomi Novik does the same thing. True. Like,
that's more of adult, while this is YA.
But I'm saying like there are other people like that that have a series not like connected, but like they continually rewrite fairy tales and that aren't connected to each other. So I'm like, it could be the same thing as Black, so it's already gonna be different.
Yeah, and there is actually a YA author that I really like, CJ Redwine, I think it is. She writes retellings, and it's very different from the original. I wouldn't call it like a remix, how like Cece mentioned. It is actually like a retelling, but there's like 4 books, and they all kind of intertwine because they live in lands near each other, and you can see characters from other books. So I don't know why, but that's immediately what I thought this was going to be like. I was like, oh, they're in the forest, and like there's going to be a witch over there just like on the other side of the Forbidden Lands. There's going to be like Snow White's story unfolding. I don't know. That's what I thought.
I was just waiting for Sophia to like go out into the rest of the world and like see what it was like out there. I was like, I just knew they were gonna get out there and like something, and maybe she would come back, but like also be like, the hell with this place and see what's beyond. I was really hoping that would happen because I'm a sucker for like isolation and like no one knows anything about what's going on beyond the forest. Nobody, but y'all know there are people there. It's not like y'all are convinced that nobody else is around, but you actually know that there are other people, but you know nothing about them. And in all these hundreds of years, you've had no interaction. I would be so intrigued. Like that intrigued me, and so I wanted to see a great exploration for that. So I feel like if this was going to be a standalone, in some aspects, the world reached a little bit too far for those things to never be addressed. For us to never get into the Forbidden Lands, like Forbidden Lands is a teaser. You're like, oh, okay, what's over there? What's beyond the wall? So, but I really wanted that to happen. I was like, yeah, keep running, okay,
keep running. Yeah, I agree. I really wanted to see what was outside too. I was like, do we get to go? Oh, and then I was wondering how you guys felt about the fact that they went in to kill like the baddest guy with evil powers with like no plan and a knife. How do you guys feel about it? I literally laughed when I read that.
Energy.
I was like, how y'all think this is gonna work? It's like they were planning for so many days, and then when we got to the plan, it was nothing.
It was literally nothing.
It was roll up, look nice.
It was funny.
I think that's one thing I think that just stood out to me is how is it that none of the other kings ever remarried, and y'all have this whole event every year that's like forced marriage? How did that happen?
I think it's because he's kind of evil, or not evil, like what's it called? When you're kind of like psychotic and you're obsessed with that one person who didn't like you back. That's what I got the vibe from. Like he never got over her. Over the hundreds of years, he's like, I'm still crazy about her. I don't know. That's how I felt.
I feel like that was what Sophie was trying to like push onto him, which was really getting under his skin. It's the fact that he never got over her, and no matter like how many years had passed, and he was still whining for a love that she just couldn't reciprocate.
How did she fight the big bad man that's 400 years old, that's so powerful, and not have a scratch? I was like, he died so easily. Like I would have had the first stab had it got him, but I feel like the second one was just as like simple. Like, how nobody succeeded all this time? Was it love? Love the answer. Did you have to be armed with the power of Cinderella's story to actually kill him? Because I was like, how did he die? I didn't really understand. Like I knew like the whole light thing and him taking the breaths and like all the people, whatever. I even thought like maybe
it was because Amina was dead, right?
Yeah, it's because they killed Amina, and once Amina dies, he dies.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, I know she was like allowing. That was also, I like how she knew what was gonna happen. She knew it was bad. She knew they were gonna kill him because she knew she was gonna allow them to kill her, and she still let it happen. And she was playing both sides. That's why I love her. I love her double cross.
But the reason I didn't like the double cross is because I'm like, okay, if you knew that you could have killed him this whole time just by ending your own life, and you're just sitting out there for hundreds of years feeling guilty, I was like, you didn't think about killing yourself earlier and telling someone, hey, when I kill, like, go do something, like kill me and then go kill him. I'm his mom. Like, I just thought it was like, oh, you could have done that years ago. I don't know. That's how I felt about that.
Maybe there wasn't the prophecy that she saw the last time she went into the reflection pool.
And what did you think of what Constance's vision was when it came to fruition? Did you? Because when they first explained her vision, I was like, what the hell does that even mean? And then when we got to the end, I'm like, oh, I guess that makes sense. But I feel like another thing, it just wasn't necessary.
Mm-mm. Yeah, and I also didn't understand why she was reading the story first.
What?
Sorry. You guys can go.
I was saying, like, Sophia's vision didn't really help her either. Like, she's like, oh, I saw the light. And I'm like, but you still didn't figure out what was going on. It didn't, like, that wasn't the key to killing him. Because I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, did the witch control what y'all saw too? Did that happen too? Because like, you seeing the light didn't just like this is anything. This is what I saw. I saw the light. I hate when it's always the light. It's always the light.
But why can't you
it's always the light. I'm just like, what it can't be anything else. Yeah, it was a time. A time was had.
It was a time.
It was a time. That's funny.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it was one of those moments that they wanted to show witchiness again. That's why they all went into the river naked, and it allowed for like the steamy moment of like looking at each other. So I just feel like that scene was just like a build up to like feel the romantic tension. And then when it like the actual prophecies, I was like, okay, first off, when I saw Sophia's or like read Sophia's prophecy, I'm like, oh, that's how you get him. Like in my head, that's like, I immediately thought that was like, okay, kill him while he's trying to eat you or whatever the light thing is. I'm like, so it took her so long to realize that. And I was just like, it's so simple. And then we see Cinderella and she's like, he killed me. And it's like, she has the same thing that Liv had and like Liv died. And so I was just like, there was a lot of similarities, but I was like, you not catching on yet? So I thought the prophecy was like the last step to try and get her to understand. I was like, come on.
And she was still stupid and didn't get it till the very end.
Yeah. Dumbass.
I was thinking like, oh, she gonna flip back, like, and she gonna, and then it's like vulnerable, and it just jump out of him, like, oh, what? It's like, is that what you're supposed to do? You're supposed to like, that's when he's the most vulnerable, when all the souls are bouncing around, and you just gotta pull him out. I was like, is that what's gonna happen? So that might be interesting.
The way you described that sounds actually kind of gross. The souls like. Okay, there are 2 minutes left to the hour, and I know everyone else has like readathons and like live shows to do after this. So let us know if you have any other questions, or if you guys have questions that you wanted to talk about before we wrap up.
No, I will say that this book does remind me a lot of Ella Enchanted, the movie. I don't know why, but like I love that movie. The same reason I love this book is just because it's fun. You don't take it too seriously. It's like the cool retelling. You know, that's it. That's almost
very quick read.
It is a quick read.
It was so quick. Yeah, it was.
I kind of like I loved about it. Yeah, like I was just like flying through it. I mean, granted, it wasn't that exciting, but I was like, okay, like 30 pages left, 30 pages. I'm like, quick.
I was flying through the pages. I think it, although Sophia is 16, I think it's more younger YA, like 13, 14. I think that age range, 13, 14, 15, will get a lot from it.
Yeah, for sure.
The way the story is told and is very accessible for like a younger audience. I think that that age group would really like get a lot from this type of story.
Yeah.
Definitely agreed. Well, That is our live show. Thank you for everyone who came by and saw us and chatted with us in the comments. I really, really appreciate you guys so much. Make sure to go check out all these lovely ladies' channels. I have them all linked down below, and I know they also have live shows that they're doing. So please go see their Twitter accounts and things to see what they're up to. And yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, rest of your day. I know I'm just starting my day and other people are ending their day. So I hope you had a good day or are going to have a good day. So thank you guys for showing up, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.